After several days of rain, I finally got a day I can do some work on this. We're going in the shed here. This is where I do the goat's hoof. You can see that it's got the wood in here. And this is the top that I put one coat of that Thompson's Water Seal oil base on. So I'm going to have to bring this out so I can start measuring and making the sides. Making the sides out of this 1/4 inch Luan, which I showed you earlier in the video, which has been cut 20 inches wide. And I left it 8 foot long so I can cut it to the dimensions that I need properly without running short here. Well, I got it laid there right now. It will open like this, and there'll be sides coming down about 20 inches. And over here it's going to be less because the exhaust has got to come out this end. So it will only come down a little bit. I'll have to take the exact measurements to know. This part here will be 20 inches and the back will be almost 20. You have to have room for the, a little bit of place for the air to get in. You take a look here. I got a sample piece of 1/4 inch stock here. Now if you look up under here, I neglected to make this the 5-degree angle because you can see that this is how it's angled, and you can see up underneath here how I angled that. Well, I need to angle it because here's what's going to happen. That plywood's coming down 20 inches. It's going to be hitting over here. See the angle? So what I got to do is I got to cut out of here, or I either got to cut out of here or I got to build up the back so that when I nail this up in there, the wood will sit like this. See how that's straight? If I nail it the way it is now, it's going to be right up against this, and it's going to make it very difficult to open and close this cover, and maybe even impossible. So I have to modify that. On this end here, I don't have to really taper the 2x4 over here, even though, I mean, not taper it, but angle it at 5 degrees. I don't really have to. Hinges go in there. This is not a problem. It's only on this end here. I can't really get my power planer in there. It wouldn't make much difference. It's only a small amount of planing I have to do. And I'll probably have to chisel the edge where the plane won't reach. Just a slight angle, and it doesn't have to be precise, just so that the wood will clear when I nail it in there. If I had thought of it before I nailed that 2x4 into place, I would have run the power planer on it or the table saw and got that angle like I did on the main frame over there. But you know, when I do these projects, sometimes you don't always think of everything all the way through. And once again, that is why I'm not a carpenter. It's a scrap piece of 1/4 inch Luan, which is what I'm going to be using. This gives you an idea. It has to be on an angle like this. Now I got to finish cleaning out these corners here a little bit. I did that with the yellow wood rasp, and now I'm going to use a wood chisel to get right into the corners. So it may not be a precise 5-degree angle. Looks like it might be a little more, but It's not a big deal because if you look over here, as long as it clears, so if it comes down like this and comes out just a little more than I like it, the sides will mate into it and be an angle. The main thing is to keep the water off the generator when I'm running it when there's a storm. If you look, I took my chisel and gently cleaned some wood out of here so that this angle is roughly, there's a little lump here, but I cleaned that, the same all the way through. And I did the same down here. It's kind of hard to do it with holding the camera, but just wanted to show you. So now we should have about the same angle we need. We got to do a little more in here to smooth it out, and I'll probably use the rasp for that. I'm ready to cut the wood. That little roller stand I bought that at the yard sale for 15 bucks, like almost brand new. Guy had a nice big table saw, but he wanted like 500 bucks for it, and I don't have the room for it anyways, but he sold this thing to me for 15 bucks. And I'll tell you, I haven't used it that much, but it's going to come in handy today to cut that plywood off down there, that Luan. So I'm going to be cutting that right now. Because the saber saw, as you know, the blade cuts when it goes up, the teeth are facing up, and what it'll do is it'll splinter the plywood. So one of the things you do, besides sandwiching it into two pieces of wood, which will make a smooth cut, is, in this case, I'm going to put a piece of masking tape on the line. I'm going to redraw the line over the top of it and then cut it that way. That'll make a smooth cut, or at least wise I hope it will. Actually, I can see the line right through that. We'll redraw the line anyways with my poor eyesight. Get my straight edge, and we'll come back on this in a minute. Okay, now I could use my little trim saw, but that's got a rough cut blade in it, and that really chops up the plywood. This has a rough cut blade too. I've got a fine tooth blade, but I got to go digging for it. And I don't have a plywood blade for the little, not the chop saw, but the 5-inch one that I usually do, my trim saw. So hopefully this won't bugger the plywood up too much. I don't like using saber saws because they don't cut a perfectly straight line, mostly because I'm crooked to begin with. Before I get any further on this, I'm going to take a piece of wood and I'm going to clamp it up underneath here to hold this end so it doesn't drop off and crack that other end off on me. So I'm going to stop the video at this time. Okay, continue on here. Now, you look at the plywood. Now, when we take this off, you want to pull it this way. You don't want to pull it down because it'll pull out the splinters if there are any. So you just pull up with it. And it gives a nice smooth edge. It's not 100%. Well, this is a piece of tape in the back there. That's not bad. Not bad for a half-ass shoemaker like myself. Got a temporary 2x4 just holding that thing on the vertical, but it's going to be, when I nail it, it'll bend over. This just keeps the thing up in line, being that I'm working alone because Tommy's at work today. I don't know if you can notice the angle on it, but she has got a little angle. And that's what we want. Now when I make the two other sides, we'll measure and draw the line for that angle. But we got to finish nailing this here. There's more nails to go in this. I'll do that off camera. Straight line. Actually, this is going to drop down. I just hope the angle stays the same. That's why I have trouble with my angles. You know, because you can't put it down in there because I haven't cut this end yet so it'll fit in there. Basically, we'll just continue the straight edge up in here. I'll cut this using the masking tape thing again. This is why I can't see the damn line when that blade is going up and down. I can't see it. It's obliterated with the vibration. Not too bad. I can wood rasp that a little bit. how the angle comes out. Having a hell of a time with angles here. I'm so afraid I'm going to cut it and screw it up. So I had to put the thing and lay it on there so I can see myself. You see the angle here, that's fine. It's out a little more than I like it. But there's no way I can measure an angle the way I had trimmed that 2x4 earlier in the video. Cut it too short. This is why I'm not a carpenter. Mickey Mouse. And I'll just have to put a piece of trim on top of the Luan so it'll blend in with the trim over there. Okay, I cut out the pattern kind of like the way I wanted it, to clear for the muffler and to let a little more air in on this end over here. So I still have to put a piece of trim on here, but there isn't very much left on this end of the wood, but I need the ventilation. Alright, I got this thing on its side, as you can see, and that metal sheetrock corner bead that I showed you earlier in the video is going to go on the outside of this with screws and nuts. So right now I'm going to nail this into place, and we're going to nail it in, and then we bring this up to it. String on that 2x4 on the side. I bang down on it. flip it around and do the other side. The other side is pretty solid. There's no holes in it. What we're going to do is make the holes for the vents afterwards. This side will have a couple of holes up here. I'll use probably my 1-inch hole saw that I use for my lock set and make a hole there just to have some ventilation from the top. Side view of it here. That corner bead will be put in there, and I trim it off and drill holes and put the nuts and bolts in there, and that'll hold it together. Now I'll paint the sides redwood, and there'll be another coat of the oil base on the top after it's in place.